Hello and welcome to This One Thing, a daily video devotional coming to you from First Presbyterian Church of Fort Lauderdale. My name is Nick Merchant. I'm one of the associate pastors here. And each day, one of our pastors or staff members are going to be looking at one of the texts in the Revised Common Lectionary's daily readings, and we'll be pulling out one thing for you to consider. We hope that you find this an encouraging and thought-provoking part of your day. Enjoy. How is your life different? How does your life look different than it did just a week or two ago? Cindy Vason, our director of children's ministry, posted a picture to Facebook yesterday, and in it there's this man standing in the middle of his kitchen, and he's looking up at his dog who's standing on top of the kitchen cabinets. And the caption reads, "No, I won't come down from here. We've been on 20 walks today. Leave me alone." I think we can all relate that it has been nice to get outside, that we have felt perhaps a little cooped up over these last couple of weeks, but that's not the only way that our lives have changed. I think we are all learning to do things differently. We're having to learn new things in our personal lives. We're having to learn new things at work, and a lot of times we're acquiring new skills and learning to do things that we have done one way for years and having to learn them anew. And learning new stuff and change, it can be so challenging. And so what have been those moments over the last week or so where you have been learning something new and just finally felt, this is impossible? Carey Nieuwhof is a pastor, and he's written a book it's called Leading Change Without Losing It. And in the book, Nieuwhof is discussing how populations engage with change. And he quotes this study by American sociologist Everett Rogers. And the study says that there's about 10% of the population that is really ready and willing to engage change right off the bat. And Nieuwhof terms this group the early adopters. And then there's a segment of the population, about 30%, that is that will change, but a little bit further down the road. But that's the next group that's really going to be willing to jump in. And then there's another segment, about 50% of us, that are really only willing to change once the velocity of the situation dictates that change is necessary. And then there's this final 10% of the population that is just sort of always opposed to any change of any kind. And now I know that's a lot of numbers to throw at you there, but I think the significant thing for us to recognize today is that there's only about 10% of us that are naturally wired to engage change at the outset. And that for the rest of us, the other 90%, change is hard. Change doesn't come naturally. And it's something that we will tend to resist, at least initially. Last week, we spent all of our time looking at texts from the New Testament. And so, at least for the next couple of days, we're going to look at the Old Testament. And we'll begin today in the book of Exodus in chapter 4. And right here, we jump into the middle of Moses' call story. And here, Moses has discovered God here in the burning bush. And God is revealing to Moses that Moses will be the one to rescue the people of Israel out of Egypt. Talk about being pushed into something new. And it's really clear here in chapters 3 and 4 that Moses is not an early adopter. In fact, Moses gives reason after reason why he is not the right choice. Moses gives excuse after excuse, almost as if to say, God, I'm not the one. This is going to be impossible. And so we pick up here in the middle of verse 13, and it says, "But Moses said, 'Oh, my Lord, please send someone else.' Then the anger of the Lord was kindled against Moses, and God said, "What of your brother Aaron, the Levite? I know that he can speak fluently, and even now he's coming out to meet you, and when he sees you, his heart will be glad." Moses gives reason after reason, and here he's just said, God, I'm not a very good speaker, and it's almost as if God says, "Come on, Moses, I need you to be a little bit creative. If you can't speak, how about your brother Aaron? How about he speaks for you? I need you to be willing to think outside the box. I need you to be confident that I, God, your creator, will provide whatever is necessary for you to do this thing, for you to do this work that I have set before you." God has created work for Moses to do, and God wants Moses to do it. But here's the one thing, is that I believe that here in chapter 4, God desires that Moses recognize that God will provide whatever is necessary. God desires that Moses recognize that God's holding all of this. Moses is going to need to take the steps forward. Moses is going to need to engage. But God will provide. Moses is going to need to be creative. Moses is going to need to learn to do new things, to think outside of the box. But God says impossible is not in my vocabulary. And I believe that God desires that you know, and God desires that I know, that He has provided and is providing and will provide all of the tools necessary for us to navigate this situation in which we find ourselves today, that we will need to think outside of the box, that we will need to be creative, but we need to engage. We'll need to learn new things, and friends, impossible is not in our God's vocabulary. Friends, I hope that you have a great day. I hope that you'll join us tomorrow. We'll be excited to hear from Reverend Pam Maston, who will be teaching tomorrow.